Hi, everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Transform Your Confidence podcast, the show where we bring you into real conversations with thought leaders, change makers, and experts who are transforming the way we think about confidence, leadership, and of course, the big one, self-worth. This is a place where we bring you into our inner circle to garner insights on knowledge and techniques that are working today with the goal of leveling up your repertoire of expertise so that you are always set up to win. We love to win here on this show, guys. I'm your host, as always, Raj Girn, the founder of the Open Chess Confidence Academy, a woman's leadership academy, agency, and foundation that is bridging the gap between competence and confidence with coaching and consulting services, programs and courses, and live events. Before we begin, I want to remind you to subscribe to our YouTube channel at the Open Chess Confidence Academy to view all video versions of our show for free. And of course, if you are an audio podcast person, go search Transform Your Confidence wherever you receive your audio podcasts so you never miss an episode when we launch them every third Thursday of the month. In today's show, we will be focusing on leadership and advocacy and so much more in an episode entitled I just have to stop for a moment because this is just a title that is from the book of the lady that we will be chatting with. It is The Truth Within the Lie That We Tell Ourselves. Such a poignant title, such an insightful conversation I know that I'm going to have. My guest today is Dana Grant, an international master life and business coach, the best-selling author of the book that I just said, but let me give you the full title, The Truth Within the Lie: How to Align with Universal Principles to Create the Life You Deserve. She's also the co-founder of the multi-million dollar brand Cali'Flour Foods and the host of her very own show, The Dana Grant Show. From battling illness and addiction to building an empire rooted in soul alignment, Dana has made it her life's work to ignite the inner potential to every person she meets. And I couldn't be more thrilled to have her on today's show to talk about this. Welcome to the show, Dana. I am so glad to be having this conversation with you. I just have to tell you that I love your energy. I love your mission, and I want to dive right in.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. I feel the same. I'm so happy and excited for this conversation.
So let's go right in it. I want to just go right there immediately. Let's
Sure.
start at the beginning. What was the turning point that led you from illness to addiction to where you are now living in full alignment with your truth? A big question.
Mm.
I'm sure there's a big answer. I want to throw it to you.
Okay. Well, yeah, no one goes right there. So I love that question because, it really starts at the transformational stage. When I made the decision I was literally taking 20,000 milligrams of Demerol injectable a month at home. And I was in my kitchen with another script, and that's monthly. That's enough to kill an elephant. And I was standing there and I thought, I'm going to die. I'm going to die.
Mm,
Now, the doctors never cut me off. They never said you're taking too much, but I was saturated. I didn't know what end was up. The pendulum was swinging wide and hard. I had debilitating migraines off the cuff. I was working with some of the best neurologists in the world. Um, and I tore the script up. I said, I'm not going to do this anymore. Now, I didn't have an answer, and I teach that now. I didn't have anything laid out, and I was terrified because I was terrified of the pain, and I thought I was going to die without the medicine. And they often would repeat that. What are you going to do? You could die of a stroke. So I thought that was saving me. So when I wrote the book, The Truth Within the Lie, the truth is the medicine was killing me. And,
mm,
and just in the nick of time did I really save myself, because what I didn't know yet was that I had I had contracted staph. My legs, my immune system was crashing. I was underweight. My legs, they were injecting my legs, could no longer take the abuse, the constant attack on them. And I had 17 forms of staph in my leg. And I told God, I said, if I survive this, I will serve and pay this forward the rest of my life.
mm.
And I have held true to that.
Oh
I'm
my
as
gosh.
transparent. Anything anyone, I will be as transparent. If I can help someone evolve through my story and get through the shame, and oh my God, the shame that I was hiding behind. No one knew. No one
Mm.
knew. And I'm married to a practitioner. And I remember going into the immediate care and saying, I need something, I need my legs swabbed. I can smell something and it smells like a dead animal. I need help. And he did that. And I went on a little vacation and he called me, says, you need to get back here now. And that was the beginning of trying to save my legs, which they said we could lose them. And I'm like,
Oh my
I was
gosh.
sitting there thinking, what's happening? What is happening here? And again, that was the beginning of the awakening, just the awakening. And then I started remembering holistic clinics that I had gone to and some rare moments that had come up. I was on a yoga match at this alternative clinic up in Victoria, Canada, and it was sensational. Now I look back on it, it was so ahead of its time. And there was one moment on this acupuncture where there was an enormous amount of release and trauma in the body. And I'm like, I don't have any trauma because in my blinders and in my stories, and that's what we do. We live
Yes.
in this story world. I didn't know that anyone else's life was different than mine. I had an alcoholic father, a mother that was doing the very best she could, but incredibly failed to attach. So I was really on my own surviving and creating more trauma bonds in the world. And I didn't even know I was attracting that. And the losses I didn't even know that through my abandonment, I was attracting a ton of abandonment. So, I think in that awakening at the holistic clinics, I started putting the pieces together like, well, that's interesting that I said that. And there were some things I said out loud because I was a business lobbyist prior to that. And I remember flying off the mat and saying, I don't think I'm a Republican. And I come from a very conservative background. It wasn't whether I was a Republican or not a Republican. I realized that I was a really good soldier. I never made my own decision and that
Mm.
I wasn't leading from a place of authority, but of fear of doing the wrong thing, the fear of not showing up, and what would people, what would people say if I didn't show up and achieve and look and do all the things I was doing? So the ego masks were thick and hard. And when I say ego masks, it's how I show up in the world, what I show people and the imposter syndrome. And again, the pain and suffering and shame behind that of never really showing up and asking and living a life of true authenticity of what I
Hmm.
really desired. I didn't even know what that looked like.
Oh
Yeah,
my gosh, there's so much to unpack here. I
yeah,
wanna I wanna ask you, you you've spoken about defeating your own lies, right? What
yes,
what was the hardest truth you had to face in order to start that healing process? Because you just talked about this kind of barrage of things that you had to deal with, the
yeah,
layers from from family, from
yeah,
parents, from society, from your own understanding of what you should be living. So
yeah.
how did you do that?
That's a loaded question because shame
Yes.
can be very, very powerful. And we hide behind it because if we showed anyone our truth, we get judged. So I think for me, my biggest moment was I couldn't get those years back from being sick. I lost over a decade of medicine, a decade of illness. It wasn't just the medicine. I was sick. And I have three daughters that are now grown in their 30s, and I couldn't fix what had been done to them. The shame around that, I have to still breathe
Mhm.
through. I have to hold space for their truth and stop defending mine.
Ah,
I had to defend. So I had to step out of defense. So no more offense, defense. And I had to hold and be accountable, radically accountable for their truth, not just mine, because everyone has their own version of truth. My truth, it looks different than their truth, but it doesn't make their truth less truthful. So I think that when I went to the root problem, I think that we call in circumstances and we're going to keep calling them in our life. For
yeah.
me, an enormous amount of abandonment, betrayal. So I attracted a lot of betrayal. And 25 years into my marriage, this was my rock, another huge betrayal. Finding out that there was infidelity through my whole marriage. He eventually lost his medical license because it was with patient. It was huge. It was
Yeah.
huge. So
Yeah.
I absolutely exploded. I had enough work under me at 10 years of doing the work and healing to at least give me some kind of foundation. But I shattered on every level. But that we call this in because
Hmm.
that betrayal, led me to the core wound betrayal. Had I not had that happen, I couldn't go back. And I always identified with one of the parents as probably where I was probably the abandoned the most. Actually, come to find out, that was a safer parent. My dad, the alcohol, was a safer parent than the one that I was absolutely clinging to for approval. And I was going through this cycle of abuse, really emotional abuse. And when I identified that, I just remember one Saturday at 2 o'clock, I'm being misunderstood again. And I'm just trying to fix it, fix it, fix it. And I just stopped and said, no more. There's my core wound. And I think we have to identify, we have to go all the way back to the versions of us. And then step two, every time shame wants to creep up or I want to hide a little bit or not, I go back and I find that version of me that's showing up. And I think love and compassion, we cannot show up in the world with love and compassion. We can't pay anything forward until we do the healing. And I pull them forward and I love them. And I tell them how brave and strong they were to get through that because they got me here. I can't
Right.
shame any version of me that got me here. I survived it. I kept my legs. Yes, they're scarred. Nope, don't have those beautiful legs anymore, but they're beautiful to me. People will, I remember when I first started showing them at, and it was getting pedicures. That was my first thing. And I remember someone saying, what, did a shotgun hit you? And thinking it was funny. I was
Mm.
dying inside. I mean, I could feel the emotion of run, Dana, run. Get out of here, never show them again. And I thought, nope, that won't do either. There are
Mhm.
layers of healing. There are layers of, and everything that happened awakened me to another level of acceptance. Does
Mhm.
that make sense?
It's
You know?
so it so makes sense. And the part of what you just said there that I'd love for you to maybe expand on because, women that are watching, listening, and reading this,
Yeah.
I feel they need to know this. And that is,
Yeah.
why was it that the parent that you thought wasn't the
Yeah.
parent that could support you was the one that ended up supporting you rather than the one that you were clinging to? Can we just unpack that for a moment? Because that stung.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that what I was told as when I was smaller that this was a safer parent because she looked more stable. She
Mm.
was the one that was providing what it looked like more stability. My dad was the alcoholic, so and my parents divorced when I was 6, 7, and so I spent my summers with my dad. Oftentimes, that emotional of having his children come, and he had stepchildren too. That event would be overwhelming emotionally for him. So he would binge drink. So I would get to
Mm.
witness that behavior. So it didn't feel safe for me. So what felt safe for me was the parent that was there and not drinking. So I equated not drinking with safety.
Mm.
And it wasn't, and there were signs along the way. And my other siblings probably woke up a little bit quicker than I did. My trauma bond with my mom was very, very um, deep. I was the chosen one that she blamed for everything. So I was
Mm.
constantly trying to defend myself and show up in the world. And this will lead to people pleasing, constantly over explaining. And I started to recognize where I was doing it the most and where the rug was being pulled out from. No matter what I did, I was back to square one, route one with her every time. I'm like, I just gave this so much energy. No matter what I do, this is what she's going to do to gain control over me again. That's where she powered up. And as long as she had me, the black sheep out of those 5 children, and this is the first time I've actually been so bold to talk about it because I've had a lot of my father passed away. He drowned when I was 30,
Oh.
um, and that was difficult. That was difficult. But I believe in earth angels being born and intuitive. My dad is really present all the time, but my mom is still alive and
Mhm.
and she listens and follows and I don't want to hurt her. But but
Mhm.
at the risk of that, I have to be honest about it. And I love her and I have enormous compassion for the fact that she failed to connect with her mom. I am healing generational trauma
Yes.
and I have to speak out because I am not the only one that has experienced this and that is living through it right now. And we're going to keep paying it forward and attracting people in our lives that are our core relationships.
Oh my gosh, you're just so right on everything that you just said there. It's not just what we go through as individuals. It's everything that is kind of, lobbied at us from
Yeah.
the generations. And even when you look at your mom,
Yeah.
who knows what she went through, right? Who
Exactly.
knows what her narrative is, that
Yeah.
she felt she needed to be the way that she was, that she needed an outlet
Yes.
to
Yeah.
kind of like, you know, to latch out to, and it happened to be you, right?
Yeah.
So, and then we start to then have a narrative of ourselves that, well,
Yeah.
perhaps I am the version of who she thinks I am.
Yeah. Or I'm
And
not
that,
good enough and I've got to
yes,
try extra hard. And we don't
yes,
have a clear lens of our truth. I'm looking at my life through her lens and
yes,
constantly competing to be enough. And,
yes,
our birthright, we're born enough. We're born worthy. We're born, in abundance. We're born with two fears, the fear of lying, or not lying. I'm thinking of the book, the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. That is it. That is it.
yes.
Everything that we've accumulated along the way, we've grabbed a hold. And Brené Brown just said something very powerful. She's resurrected and she's back on podcast shows. And I caught this mini clip
Thank God.
of she said, "It isn't the fear that stops us from moving forward. It's the armor that we keep picking back up." And
Hmm.
what kind of truth is that? 95% of our subconscious is running the show. We're interjecting 5% every day of our truth. And we're running off programs that we've installed and that we have believed to be our truth. It is our job to identify and step into the newness, which is that terror barrier, because our ego is protecting that maze. I call it the maze because it's like back over there. I got you. We're protected here. We know this one. Let's get a different outcome. But the newness is where we need to go in order to evolve. And it can be terrifying. It can be more terrifying than trying to repeat the same cycle and trying to get a different outcome. And that's exactly what we're doing.
That's exactly what we do. So let's unpack that a little bit, Dana. You've said that women are often taught lies about their worth and their power. What are some of those lies, and how do we quietly limit ourselves? Which is why we don't actually go to the other side of that fence. We stay on the side
Yeah.
that keeps torturing us because at least we know that we can handle that torture, or we think we
Yeah.
can.
Well,
Like,
I think, yeah, I
yeah.
love that question because I think that that's a the duality of it is we take on the invisible workload as women. And I think generationally we're taught we're born more compassionate. I think that we hold the space for growth in children. We are designed differently. It would
Hmm.
be impossible for me to say that we're designed the same as a man. We're not. And I celebrate those differences. Um, but in that, we also adapt the generational patterns of how our grandmother did it, and it's so subconscious and so subtle. I mean, how many of us cook and do all the things that our grandmother did? And what's coming up? Thanksgiving's coming up, and then we're pulling out the recipes that generations have used. I'm going to make my grandmother's lemon sour pie and her German chocolate cake, and that was probably her mother's. But
Hmm.
there's this. I don't know if this is applicable or not, but it just dropped in, and I'm going to share this story. There is a story I sometimes share, and it's kind of paraphrased, but it's like the granddaughter asked the mother. She asked the mom, "Hey, mom, why do we cut off? It's a meatloaf recipe. Why do we cut half of the meatloaf off?" And, can you ask grandma why we do that? Because it's grandma's recipe. And the grandmother, mom goes to the grandmother, and the grandma says, well, because I didn't have a big enough pan. So see, we're still limiting ourselves because our grandmother limited herself. And when I was 10 years
Hmm.
old, I was just reading this yesterday. When I was 10 years old, now that I'm 61, so at not 10, yes, at 10, women could have credit cards for the first time, could be on mortgages. It's crazy that, I was born into, in 1964, these women didn't have these rights. I don't think if we just put a different lens on it and look at where we have come from, and right now we're kind of imploding on the entrepreneurship scene. I mean,
Yes.
I don't know if you can feel that vibration out there, but women are getting empowered. They're not
Yes.
asking for permission anymore. They're showing up and they're busting through those glass ceilings. And I mean, I'm watching it. I work with women all over the world, and I'm telling you, I see where they're limited. I see the stories they're telling themselves, and it's my job to keep removing those layers so they are so empowered that I just watch them fly. And it's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. And so let's talk a little bit about what you just said there. Many women carry guilt for wanting more, right? And that seems to
Yeah.
be a big thing that, stands in our way towards our greatness. How can they start unlearning those old narratives without feeling the shame for having, this idea that they deserve more and that they deserve to be in first place? Like you've been through that. Can you share
Yes.
how you did it? How can these women do it? Because that's the thing that I find with women that I work with as well, Dana. Like just bridging the gap between the competence and the confidence is such a huge gap because women are so fiercely competent. And like you said, are now starting to realize that, the empowerment comes from,
Yeah.
themselves, the work that they need to do, which then they realize that they can do all the things that they've been told that
Mhm.
they can't do or to stay small and all of the narratives that you and we know, right?
Yeah.
So can you share that? Like how do we break past the old narratives, which are very heavy, generational, limitations,
Right.
to putting ourselves first? How do we do that as women?
Oh, there's so many great answers to this, but I would start with whom you're surrounding yourself with. I look at layers to life. I look at friendships. I look at who is the most dominant voice in your head. Is it a parent? Is it a family member? What stories are you telling yourself? Because the stories are whatever your mind, your most dominant thought, that's the life you're going to create. If I don't think I can do it, I'm not going to do it.
Hmm.
If I have money stories and I don't believe I can create $1 million business, guess what? I'm not going to create it. And then I'm going to say, I don't know what's happening. I'm doing everything, but I just can't create it. They don't even realize the root is and this is where the lie really comes in. We lie to ourselves in our subconscious because we've got this programming and we haven't identified yet that it's not even our story. And I tell a story. I just got back from doing a keynote in Boston, and I told a story about my grandmother was one of the largest real estate brokers in California, and self-made millionaire, and I
Wow.
really respected her. But she said, and never buy a new car, always buy real estate. So I always did that. But when I started making a lot of money, I wanted a new Range Rover and I could afford it. But that voice was still in my head. I didn't even realize it wasn't my story. I was just being guided by her story. And then I thought back, it was my dad's birthday, December 31st. I got in the car, drove to the Range Rover dealership 2 hours away, picked out my Defender, says row free on it, and it sits in my driveway today. I don't get to drive it, but to the airport and back most of the time. But I love that car. And that car
Yes.
broke a money story. So I think we have to identify first the stories we've created. That was a
Hmm.
story that was part of my lack and scarcity story. Never, my grandmother came out of the Depression. Of course, she
Hmm.
had lack and scarcity. And it was an honor to take care of her in the last 8 years of her life. But I will tell you, I remember being at the attorney's and her asking if she could bury those millions with her. She did not want to give that up. She did not
Wow.
let money flow. There's so many layers to this abundance that we want and this expansion. And we also have to identify, is the ego in control, or is the heart energy in control? Because the heart is going to
Hmm.
expand and it's going to be vast and wide, and it's going to be filled with freedom and flow. The ego is going to contract. It's going to divide, separate, judge. So identify, are you judging? Are you comparing? Are you surrounding yourself with gossip? Are the women lifting you up? Are they challenging you? Are you feeling inspired every day? Because you can, by the women that you
Hmm.
surround yourself, the team, the men and women that you surround yourself with. But
Absolutely.
particularly women tend to be anchored into and don't want to give up their old narrative, because what if it doesn't work? What if I lose
That
everything? But
that what if is a big one though,
oh,
Dana, for us,
huge.
right?
It's that pause. It's where people don't hire a mentor. What if I waste that money? But what if this is your breakthrough? What on the other side of that? Sky's the limit. What if? But they're terrified to let go because this story has kept them safe. And they would have to address what it is in their life that isn't working. That means a potential divorce. That means change. And there's nothing more frightening for women, especially with a safety issue, than
Hmm.
change. Any form
Hmm.
of change or newness is like, oh, ho, 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 well, that looks great for you, but oh, yeah, another day.
So
And then
let's
they sit, yeah, they worry and they churn.
hmm
Worry, doubt, fear. If any of that is going on, that will keep you in the struggle. It keeps you in the
Absolutely.
struggle. You're bound in the struggle.
Absolutely. And that's when you do need the mentor or the guide or the book. So let's go to your book.
Yeah.
The Truth Within the Lie. How to Align with Universal Principles to Create the Life You Deserve. Donna, can you share what people would expect to get out of this book? Because I feel like it's a great starting point for those women out there who have all of these things that you just talked about and don't know kind of, where do I go? How do I do this? I always
Mhm.
find reaching outside of yourself is
Right.
always the best first step. So I feel that your book is, going to be a great way where women can do that. Share what this book is about. Who is it for? And what's the
Mhm.
big takeaway?
Okay, a multifaceted, layered question, but we're going to start. So it dropped in two universal laws. There's 14 universal laws I chose, and I tell 14 stories in my life and what the truth was, what the lie was, and what universal law is applicable in all the modalities. I don't just go with universal laws, but all the things they can do to evolve forward. And I think that if they're listening to this and they're leaning in, don't disengage. Don't stay connected. Stay
Hmm.
connected, even uncomfortable, and see how that mirrors back at your life, how you can identify. Your story might be different than mine, but the truth might be the same of what you're living. So in this book, I'm gonna go with two universal laws. First one is cause and effect. And this is where women get really uncomfortable. You are first cause. You come first. That means boundaries, parameters. That means if you don't, you can't, we know that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. If you don't fulfill you can't pay anything forward. You show up resentful, back in the ego energy. We have to start identifying how we're showing up every day and not playing the blame game, but being accountable. Like, where is this coming from? It's kind of like those old little viewmasters that we put on. We've created this scenario, snap, snap, and it's not real. It's not the life
Hmm.
we really want, but we don't even know how to find that because we've layered up what we've imposed this invisible workload on us that we have to. How many women have you said, "Oh, I can't hire anyone. Oh no, that's my job."
Oh
Ask
my
for help.
gosh.
Ask for
Yes.
help. It was when I started waking up, that invisible workload was just illuminating. That's where I got my value. Where do you get your value? If you don't do all that, if you don't cook dinner every night, if you don't decorate the house for 2 weeks for the holidays and entertain, and you're the one, if you don't ask for, what does that mean? What story do you make that mean for you? So you've got to come first. And that means start assessing where you are in your life. Start breaking it down where you can ask for help, or have you isolated yourself into the Lone Ranger and you're Captain Marvel. You're the one that's, a superwoman, and you're going to show up because I was superwoman. I could do it all. That pendulum swung. If I wasn't
Hmm.
doing it all, I was sick and debilitated taking medicine. So there was no middle ground. And there's a middle ground. We have to meet ourselves in the middle. And
Hmm.
as a Libra, balance is everything. And
Hmm.
and with cause and effects, women get really uncomfortable with coming first. They're like, "Oh no, no, my kids come first." And then they're way down on the totem pole. You come first cause, and everything is an effect from that. And the second one is the universal law of surrender. What are you willing to give up to live the life that if you just want one thing, and I believe in the 1 degree. If I'm off by 1 degree in my life, and I'm on a plane and I'm flying, that's 360 miles. I'm off course. I'm going to land in the middle of the ocean, not in Hawaii. So what is 1 degree that you can do every day to get in alignment with what you truly desire? You've got to ask for it. And you've got to surrender. You've got to give it up what no longer fits the life. If you say you want a life of abundance, and you say you want vacations and more peace and joy, and you aren't getting it, what in your life is preventing you from that? Because you're first cause. You're in complete control. Our greatest power is the right to choose every day, this in the present moment. The past doesn't need you. The future doesn't need you. Right here and now is where all our power is. This is where we can make the changes and the difference in our life. But if we're in the stories, then we go to the what ifs in the future, and we've completely spiritually bypassed our PowerPoint
Hmm.
because we don't know how to drop in and navigate there. I say be still
Absolutely.
with that. Breathe. A lot of women don't breathe. They're sitting up here and it's very shallow, and they're over processing, overthinking, over delivering, anxious. Breathe through it and be willing to sit. with what may be coming up from you for you.
Mhm. You know, Donna, you talk a lot about divine timing. Like, I feel that you just kind
Yes.
of talked about that, but I want to kind of talk a little
Yeah.
bit more direct about that. Can you share a moment in your journey? Because I think that might be helpful for people to try and translate it over into kind of the journey that they're going through, that maybe they don't recognize this. So I'm going to ask you directly. Can you share a moment in your journey when things didn't go to plan, but alignment revealed a better path? Because I feel that's the piece that just may be the piece that
Yeah.
someone needs to hear.
Yeah, well, that would be trusting the process. And that was the original name of my book. And the sign behind me, if I could illuminate that a little bit, says trust the process.
Hmm.
So trusting the process means trust your process. Everything the universe is working for you, not against you. And that isn't when things are going right, because I can guarantee you, even in the abundance and the life I have reinvented and recreated, it doesn't always go right for me.
Hmm.
But I am grateful for it all because everything is a learned moment. Everything, if everything is working for me, I'm not going to pick and choose. On a bad day, I'm not going to say, oh my gosh, the bottom's falling out. What's happening? No, I'm like, oh, isn't that interesting? What do I need to know? I upgrade my language. And so I call that in and say, what do I need to know from that? So, I got a huge tax bill a couple of years ago. And instead of the old me would have freaked out, it's over, my God, I'm going under. Down the rabbit hole, big, big black hole. And instead I said, oh my gosh, that's so interesting. And I said, I made a shit ton of money. And I wasn't prepared for that. We need more write-offs. We need a bigger boat. So it was information. It was information I needed to hire a better accountant and to structure things differently. So the bottom is
Hmm.
never falling out. That information is coming to you and it will come fast and hard, especially when you are contemplating change. You'll say, oh
Hmm.
my gosh, it's just not possible. If you can be still through that, and this is an ebb and flow situation. We're in flow and nurture when we're in our heart energy. When the ego's there, we are going to be our we're not going to be an advocate for change. We're going to divide and judge and separate ourselves from abundance because that lives over here in our life force energy and the masculine side of our body, which means we have to receive new information. And I believe in, I did not know what to do when I tore those scripts up in my kitchen. But all of a sudden, and I wasn't online, I was really in isolation. And because I didn't want anyone to see what was going on.
Hmm.
So all of a sudden, there was Louise Hay's book and on Heal Your Life in 21 Days, and I read it. I didn't even know at that time Louise Hay and I share the same birthday, same birth hours, all of it. I didn't know any of that. And later that we wear the same ring on the same finger, and later to find out we're really connected. And so look for signs. Signs, you
Hmm.
will attract what you need to evolve. And if anyone's saying I'm not attracting anything but trauma bonds, those trauma bonds are showing up to show you where you have connected, vibrationally, because everything is
Hmm.
energy. Everything
Hmm.
is energy. And know that money is just energy. And if you've got layers of stories, generational stories like I did, I mean, money doesn't grow on trees, all those little one-liners, had me terrified. And my story was, oh, no, I'm not good with money because I was told, oh, you're not good with money. You're an overspender because I bought a pair of jeans once. And, and I put too much gas in my car zipping around in high school. Oh, buying those Jordache jeans, you're not good with money. You're an overspender. So that spiritual seed was planted. You're
Yeah.
not good with money. Someone said I was overweight in high school and I was thinner than I am now. It's crazy. But that created an eating disorder for years.
It's unbelievable
Yes.
how much
Unbelievable.
external stuff we
Yes.
allow ourselves to absorb. So I
Yes.
want to ask you this question, because, allowing ourselves to be successful women also comes with a lot of what you just talked about. So for the ambitious women watching, listening, and reading this, Donna, how can they balance that inner drive with the need to surrender and trust the process, which is something that, you vehemently
Mm.
believe in? Because sometimes that's what the hardest part is.
Yeah, well, that's a great question because the old me would push, push, I mean, I would bear it, and I took pride in knocking down doors. I took pride in not listening. I took pride in setting records as a lobbyist, sales records. And that was trauma bonding. There's no way I could show up and do that again. I think that when we adapt the nurture and flow, which means I'm attracting everything. In fact, anytime that I enter the struggle that I need to do more, push harder, fill my year up with more, these year end, I get very still this time of year and say, what do I need to know? I just canceled the trip to New York. I'm slowing down and I'm paying attention. I'm assessing the year. What went right? What were my biggest moments that I learned from? What did I attract all year long? What do I want for 2026? And what spiritual seeds am I willing to plant? Because
Hmm.
control is just an illusion. We have no control, but structure is important. But I think they need to adapt that they are, if I said everything is energy and everything vibrates, where are you vibrating? Joy, happiness, laughter vibrate very high. And if we have more joy, I just posted a picture. I took a break before this podcast. I walked out to get my tea and I walked past the sun just barreling in my living room. And I took a picture of it and I shared it. And I said, joy filled moment. I said, you have 3 minutes. I sat and I did some deep breathing and I could hear my water boiling. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it was such a beautiful moment. Those joyful moments are what are filling up our days. Stop waiting for these big
Hmm.
moments. At 61, I can say there were huge moments that I can barely remember. I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It's the little moments. It's what my day is filled with that raises my vibration, that attracts the women that I connect with, because we're not going to connect or attract anything. And it's all attraction. You could push very hard and you're out of alignment 1000%. It's that 1 degree of trust. Do you trust who you are? And if you don't, you've got to get in alignment with that.
Hmm.
Because, I call it the trust fall. Where are you out of trust with yourself? Where do you not trust yourself?
I feel like what you're saying there is kind of like it's like that seesaw of, shrinking and
Yeah.
expanding that we put ourselves through. You've mentioned moments when you stopped shrinking and started expanding. Like you've
Yeah.
been kind of, voicing that as we've been chatting. What
Yeah.
can I ask you, Donna, like what was one of those moments that changed within
Mm.
you the narrative of that seesaw of shrinking and expanding that we go
Mm.
through as humans? Can you pinpoint something that makes the
Oh,
work
yeah. Yeah. Taking back
worthwhile?
my power and detaching from external validation. What people think of me is none of my business. It's none of my
Yes.
business. So when somebody wants to share a gossip moment of something that's painful, or I remember once a girlfriend said, we were in her living room and there was some kind of game that she invited me to, and she goes, you're a lot of energy. She says, so just if you and I'm like, yeah,
I
you better
love it.
believe, yeah, I'm a
I
lot of
love your
energy.
energy. I
Yeah,
love your
so
energy.
thank you. Thank you. So I would play it small. I would try to adapt so the world would I would be more digestible. I would make better friends. That is an inauthentic connection and will never. So taking my power back looks like this. I come from a place of love and compassion first with me. I had to do the work.
Yeah.
And now I can pay that forward so genuinely. And when I see women that show up like that, I have love and compassion, not judgment. The ego wants to judge and say, oh my God, what is she doing over there? No, it's like, oh, wow, you're hurting and you're in a lot of grief. And I go right to where that is. And oftentimes, and I think that's why I attract the level of women that I do. They
Hmm.
want more. They want more joy. Money's just going to follow your authority. If you are not the authority in your life and someone else's voice is dominant or presence is dominant and you don't even know what that looks or feels like, nothing's going to follow you except for
Hmm.
what you've created. And it's like a whirlpool. It's like Groundhog's Day. It's going to repeat until you say, I'm going to break this cycle. And I really believe in speaking our life out loud. Every morning I wake up and I do these practices. Before my eyes are even open, I'm up at 3 a.m. I meditate with all my clients each day. I'm an intuitive coach too. So I write down notes that come through and I let that guide me. And it's a brilliant way to do it because I'm in deep trust with my God and source. But with that, I do these practices, all is well in my world. We have to reprogram and we have to pick up tools that are easy and make sense. If it's too difficult and we're trying to do this complicated process, it's not going to work. It doesn't have to be hard. We know a hard way. The ego makes it hard, and we don't know our way out of the maze. The heart makes it
Absolutely.
easy. It's expansive. It's easy. It should be easy. And we've got to choose easy. So I do this breath work before my eyes even open. All is well in my world. I am safe. I am loved. I am protected. If I have a moment where I can, it doesn't mean those feelings go away. I just got back from walking the Camino from Portugal to Spain. And then my daughter flew over who's pregnant at 30. My first grandbaby's coming the first part of the year. And she came over 5 months pregnant. It was such an incredible time floating around the Mediterranean. We did everything we wanted, but I took a lot of time off work. And then I started to say, what are you doing still in Spain? You need to get home. You need to reconnect. And I said, oh no, oh no. This is sacred time. This is my moment. These are the moments that weren't, but if I had imposed that, I would have started to disconnect from that present moment. And I wouldn't have been fully present for all those magical moments. And did all of it go great? No, I got all my luggage was ramsacked on a little airline called Ryanair. And I'm going to give everyone a shout out. Don't fly Ryanair. If I would have known and gone to their site and read the amount of theft that had happened, but they stole all my jewelry. And if I believe that everything is working for us, not against us, it doesn't mean I like that they stole my beautiful pieces, because I was there 6 weeks and I brought a lot with me. I always do. It's the first time that that's ever happened. But I did speak into the universe before I left that I need to downsize. I need to give a lot of things. And I had bought racks and did a video just before I got rid of over 40%. The room behind me is a complete wardrobe room. I love beautiful things. I'm a Libra. I love to surround myself with art, and I've downsized. So I've got to release some stuff. Universal law of surrender. I said, before I go on this journey, I'm going to surrender, and I'm going to give beautiful things that have barely been worn, but I need to sort and lighten the load. So I put that out there, and they lighten my load. Now I didn't. So I say, be specific, get specific, because I wasn't specific. I also said I need to get rid of a lot of my jewelry. I didn't mean that jewelry. So we speak it out there, that I spoke it out there, and the universe is leaning in saying, let me support you. It doesn't mean I wanted my beautiful things stolen, but I can't pick and choose what works for me and what doesn't work for me. It's all working for me. And which means I have struggled with the release of that. And there is grief around it. There are beautiful pieces that I bought along the way. When I made $1 million, when first year of my business, 5 years into my business, I would have a piece of jewelry made, and 2 of those pieces were stolen. And I'm just having some remade that I loved, and the price is quadrupled because gold has gone up. And I'm like, this isn't working for me. It doesn't mean that it's all gonna just drop on our head and illuminate, and I'm quantum leaping every moment. It means that I have to slow down around those moments and say, what did I speak out there into existence? And then I remembered what I said and what I had done before I went. And I wasn't being specific. I was being very general. And so we need to speak our life. It's our life. We have to be radically accountable for what we're saying every day. I say, set your alarm on your watch or phone. We are all carrying phones every 2 hours, and then drop in. And that moment that alarm goes off, what's my most dominant thought? What's my most dominant thought? Because your life is following your most dominant thought. Usually when we wake up in the morning, there's your most dominant thought.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I have to ask you this from what you just said there. How do you discern between growth that's ego driven versus expansion that's soul led? Because you've been talking about it, but I
Yeah.
feel like people need a direct answer.
Ego driven would be, I'm judging myself for the amount of work I'm doing every day. I'm working harder. There's some story I'm attached to that if I don't work hard, I'm not going to be successful. So I'm using language like slay all day, I'm showing up and I'm a workaholic and I'm showing everybody the high reels, not the low reels. I'm afraid of all that because the ego is about fear, division, judge, and we're doing it to ourselves. And we're spinning our wheels. We might be making some headway, but there is an easier way. That is such a difficult way. And I know that way. I know that way for years. It never brought the abundance I wanted, but we will never rise above the level of our worthiness. There's your high low. If you don't believe you can make that, guess where you're going to stay? Slaying all day, working hard, the busy work. I say anything less than $45 an hour, you hire out for. I don't do any busy work. I delegate. I've got a beautiful team. I've got team leads everywhere. I stay connected to source and attraction. That's my job. You've got to know your job. It doesn't mean that we don't wear all the hats, but we know where our strength and our power is. And coaches will do this a lot. I have to do it all. I can't afford. You can get a VA right now.
Yeah.
For $200 a month to delegate and help you build. They can meet you wherever you are. Stop the stories that you can't. You have to listen to what you're saying. I don't believe I can't do anything. It's a choice.
Love that.
It's a choice. You're choosing that your story says you can't hire that. And I can guarantee you spend that at Target or Walmart or the grocery store on random snacks at the end of the day when you're hungry. I can guarantee you there's energy leaks everywhere. And I say, every time you say, I can't afford that, or there's no money for that, say there's no energy for that. Replace the word money with energy and see how that works for you. Your life will illuminate like, well, I do have the energy for that. So I think that living a soul-led life is expansive. It means that I'm trusting at a deep level, regardless of, and this is gratitude. Whether my bank account has $10 or 10 million, I am grateful for that money. I am grateful for my bills being paid. I resent nothing. Everything is attached to a high vibrational energy. And I never, ever drop into worry, doubt, and fear. It rubbed up against me when I was in Europe. I'm like, what are you doing? You're hemorrhaging money. And I said, oh, no. No, you are absolutely a massive attractor of money. So it's my language that I speak out. And I've always been a massive attractor of money. Now, whether I kept it or not was another thing, because that was a worthiness level. So, I had to get aligned with my worth, which means what stories am I telling myself? Do I even believe? What is a heart expansion, soul-led life? Well, it means trust. Do you trust yourself? Can you trust the moments that aren't going right? What do I need to know? Asking upgraded questions. Like I said, I do that practice in the morning. All is well in my world. I call in the peace. I don't start my day with chaos. Chaos may occur, but I don't have to participate in any of that. I'm a great observer. My favorite line is, oh, that's so interesting that that's showing up. Oh, look at that. I could activate. I know what the old me would have done. I'd have lost my shit on that one. But now I'm watching it saying, yeah, I can't even rile a response because I'm deeply in my body. I'm connected to source. And I'm like, oh, that's so interesting that that's showing up. What do I need to know? And every day in the mirror, as I go in to brush my teeth in the morning, one of my first questions is mirror work. What do you need from me today, Dana? And I honor that. I'm first cause. I'm going to honor where I am. I had dental surgery 2 days ago and had an implant put in, and I needed the next day off, which was yesterday. My jaw was stiff. And I said, okay, we're going to rearrange, and I'm going to work. I don't normally work on Friday. I'm going to work on Friday. I'm going to see clients on Friday. And see, I gave myself permission to make the changes, honoring me, not, oh, what is everyone going to think? Oh, everyone's going to be upset because they have their set day. No, there's no set anything. Everything is in flow. If I'm in nurture and flow, I'm attracting the people that I'm aligned with. Doesn't mean that it all goes right. It just means that I trust that even when it doesn't, I have a better response for it. Because everything, our power is in our response. Our intake and our outtake. There's all your power every single day.
Absolutely. And I want to kind of now lead right into something that you teach called intuitive leadership, because I feel that that's kind of a little bit about what you're talking about here. Can you share with everyone, what does intuitive leadership mean, and how does it differ from the traditional leadership models that, we've been taught? I feel like I know, but I'd like you to share.
Well, another multi-layered, but if I kept it simple, it's really about, for me, keeping it simple, connecting, being an active listener. And if I'm not listening and I'm not soul-led and I'm not connecting and I'm trauma-driven and I'm money-driven and I'm working hard, I am missing all the signs. And the universe is full of signs.
Mm-hmm.
I can guarantee it's like the white car syndrome. The minute I say, I'm going to buy a white car, maybe I'm going to buy a white Camry, I see a million white Camrys that were not on my radar before. So we call in what we need to evolve. And I think if is it intuitive? We are all deeply intuitive. A lot of women will say, I trust my gut. Well, don't trust your gut. That's attached to your spleen, and that's where all your fear is processed. Trust your intuition. It lives differently. It sets differently in the body, and learn to trust that. And I don't, I remember my life when I was in and out of trust with myself, second guessing myself, being a born intuitive, a born seer. I would see things and say, oh, I can't know that because I couldn't be a woman of faith and believe that too. I was in and out of my belief system. Where are we at in and out of our belief system in your life? It might be religion. It might be foundational. It might be someone else's opinion of what you should be doing. Where are you in and out of what you want? What you desire? I say put a stake in it and start there. You got to put a stake in it and say, I desire this. Boom, you've activated first law. The universe is saying, what did you just say you wanted? And then all of a sudden you have signs coming in, intuitive signs that you have called in because you put a demand on the universe. The universe is not going to do anything unless you put a demand on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like angels, and they're not even going to be activated unless you ask. That's just a universal law. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that all of these things we have so many resources working for us that we don't activate. And we think
Absolutely.
that as women, how many women put on that cape each day? I got to do it. Get out of my way. I do it best. I do it faster. I do it better. And it's in every area of our business, and this is the perfection paralysis. Are you okay just getting it done? There are times, even on my podcast show, which just ranked in the top 2% in less than a year. And I'm like,
Wow.
it's so full of imperfections. I have dyslexia. I reverse sentences sometimes. And I'm like, oh, that didn't make sense. We don't cut that out. I slaughter names sometimes. And I remember Dave Melsner said, and I said Metzler through the whole thing, and he let me do it for an hour and a half. He says, I'm giving you 20 minutes. He allowed that go for an hour and a half. It was a great podcast. And then in the end, he says, if I didn't love Dana, I would not have allowed her to mispronunciate my name. It's David Metzler and not Mesler, not Metzler, like she did. And I'm like, it was one of those moments, kind of like a book that I quoted through the whole thing. And I said, wonder lust instead of wonder hell, which is a best-selling book. And I'm like, and she didn't tell me till the end, hey, don't be afraid to make mistakes, because that is
Mm-hmm.
your growth edge. Without all of that, I miss all the learned moments. And I'm here to grow and learn. I've never arrived. I'm still learning. I'm still a student, and I always will be. Yes, I've got master all those things behind my name and years of success. I am still really one. I do not want to be the smartest one in the room. I want to
Mm-hmm.
learn. I want to be inspired. I want to get into rooms that light me up,
Yes.
that are joy filled. And I think that's listening to the heart energy. That's attached to heart energy. If
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a room and I'm the smartest and I'm the best and I need to prove a lot, that's ego energy, and you're in the wrong
Yes.
room.
Yeah. So, in your world, Donna, advocacy seems to be less about speaking for people and more about helping them speak for themselves. So,
Yeah.
let's address that for a moment. How do you model that in your coaching and in your business?
Um, that's an interesting question. So I think sometimes we have to lend as coaches. When people come to us, we can identify what's going on intuitively. I know why they're there. I just know. And that's why I meditate every morning and I write down what it is I see coming through. And then I look at that, and then it's like I see where they're going. I never tell them. I used to do readings. Now it's like puzzle pieces that I dump out, and I'm there. I'm going to allow them I'm going to ask better questions, and I'm going to allow them to illuminate on their life and drop in to what's working for them, what's not working for them. But I think as coaches and leaders, we have to ask better questions, which means our growth
Mm.
is essential, that we are
Hmm.
always learning and growing. I am not where I was last year or the year before or 5 years ago. The transformation is remarkable because I'm still learning. There isn't like this format blueprint. And I have a library of enormous amount of work that I can give away. But this year I gave away less. I trusted more. I was more in flow, and I recognized that in my assessment. I was going to New York in a couple of weeks because the NASDAQ picked up my book and I was going to go celebrate that. And I called the publisher and publishing house and I said, is there any way I can do it in the spring? Is there any way I can just be still for the rest of the year where I don't have to get back on a plane? And I need this time to assess, to just be still. And how many of us have never given ourselves permission to be still? I certainly didn't. I was busy all the time, running from what I didn't want to feel, which was uncomfortable, and over delivering and over giving. And I think that that attachment is what we do. And I think it's our job as leaders and coaches to illuminate. We're never going, and I believe this, we're never going to attract anyone that isn't further down the tunnel than us. So we can shine that light and say, this way, this way. And I believe that energy is everything and it's always aligned. If we're aligned, we're going to attract women that are aligned. And if we don't, in the beginning, I was not aligned. My sign above my head said, come one, come all. I'm a master certified life coach. And I'm like, what in the heck? I got tons of people, but it was so out of alignment. I'm like, I'm not a therapist. And I think they would say they were bipolar. There was eating disorder, all kinds of things. And I'm like, is that what I should be doing? I think that I'm supposed to be referring to counselors on that. And I mean, literally, I thought none of this feels, and I thought maybe I'm just uncomfortable. No, I was calling in, come one, come all. Now I'm very specific. I'm very in alignment with who needs to show up. And all I really require is accountability. I need them to be accountable for showing up, doing the work, because man, I'm going to show up when they're on my radar. I lock and load, which means we're going to move. That needle is going to move and they are going to do the work. In the beginning, I thought I had to do all the work because there was a worthiness issue. I still had to work through a decade ago. Was I worthy to even lead? Was I worthy? I never said that out loud, but I constantly questioned, are you enough? Are you enough? It's exhausting to the soul to keep asking, to keep feeling, to keep seeking, and I think we have to identify that. And now whenever I think, and there's a new moon going on right now and it's dark and this is a dark time and we're putting things down, we're surrendering and we're feeling loss, and we can confuse that with not enoughness. But how can we be still around that and actually celebrate all these seasons of ourself, of menopause, of you, all of it? Because even the silent grief of menopause that we don't talk about as women getting older, we don't talk about. We talk about women getting older and unseen. I don't even buy that. I think women in their 50s and 60s and 70s are more beautiful now than ever.
100%.
And more powerful. They're showing up and they're full because they don't give a shit.
Absolutely.
They've unpacked all that. And they're untethered. So I love that they're fully embracing their power, and you're just watching like, what are you going to do next? And I feel that for me, I'm asking myself those questions right now. Okay, 2026, something I'm releasing stuff. What are we going to build? I don't have the answer, and it's none of my business because the universe is twice as powerful as me. So I surrender and I said, you know what? You can create more abundance than I could ever put a limit on. So I leave that open-ended, but I trust and I'm in the flow and I don't have to know. Because the need to know, we have to stay married to this process and divorce the outcome. If we're attached to the outcome, I'm back in the grind. I need something from it. And as leaders, we have to release any expectations, because if I expect anything, I expect a return on this podcast or anything that I do, I show up in service. How are you showing up? Do you expect, someone just said to me, I took someone on a retreat and she goes, I expected this from it. It was an incredible retreat. Now she's incredibly grateful. But at first she had expectations that it would break her life wide open in some areas. And it didn't. She expected that and was angry. And I thought, oh, that's so interesting. I didn't take it personally. I love the book by Don Miguel Ruiz. The Four Agreements is one of my favorite books. It's simple. Don't take anything personally. Always do your best. These simple rules. Get back to basics. Who were you before the world told you who you should be? And how you programmed how to show up. What is it you truly want? And put a stake in that. This is what I want. Start there. It's like landing on the moon when they put the flag in. I visualize the stake I put and what that spiritual seed is, what do I need to surrender in order to achieve that? because I'm going to have to give something up, a limited belief, a story I've created about me. And in turn, my lens of the world is like a viewmaster. I am processing everyone through my lens. And when we can actually see things clearly, there is nothing more illuminating than that.
Absolutely. So, Donna, I want to ask you this for everyone that is watching, listening, and reading this. Who do you work with? Like, who is your ideal client? Who needs to work with you?
Mm.
Um, and how do they work with you? Because we've talked about all the
Yeah.
brilliance of everything that, you've shared and imparted on us. And I feel like I'm going to be watching this episode over and over again because it's like
Mm.
that perfect movie where you just each time you watch it, you glean something new. And I feel that this
Mm.
episode with you is going to be that for me and for a lot of
Mm.
people. So I want to be able to kind of hone this in as we get ready to close off and invite in those people
Mm.
that are the right people who are looking for what you can help them with. Who are they and how can you help them?
Oh, I think that women that want more in their life and maybe feel disconnected. There's so that answer can be so broad because I work with a lot of women that I refer out to counseling as well, that I work alongside. I work with some of the richest women in the world, and I work with women that make payment plans to me. It's I
Wow.
attract women that just know they aren't living to their full potential. And they don't even know what that is. They don't have an answer. They don't know what's wrong. They feel something. So if this conversation has stirred something in you and you can't resolve it, you can't figure it out because we go right up and we try to figure it out. We want to think our way through. Set up a call with me. On my website, people can set up a 30-minute call with me and we can see if you're a good fit because I dive into their story. I listen to what they say. I take it by case. This year has been full of one-on-ones. I speak in masterminds. I've got my own mastermind, The Abundance Architect. I do keynotes. I do a women's retreat in Europe each year. That fills up really quick because my clients get the first shot. So it's usually my clients that take it. But I love work. I work with men too. A lot of professionals. It went through dentists, attorneys, and I think that I identify that women, the armor they pick up is their masculine side. They believe they've got to deliver, and they might be over delivering, and then some of them might be hiding, and they may be terrified. They're wallflowers. They don't even know how to show up, and these are the ones that really come powering through. The ones that haven't had a voice yet. They just don't know what to do next. And I always say, you don't know what to
Mm,
do yet. You know,
I
we we
love that.
we upgrade. Oh, you don't know what to do yet, but you've asked the right question and you showed up for you. I think the first step is show up for yourself. I can't make you show up for yourself. And there are women that it breaks my heart that have watched me for years and said, I followed you for 3 years and I didn't think I was worthy to work with you or I'd be an ideal client. Do you think that maybe? And I'm like, oh gosh, I wish you would have reached out 3 years ago. Why did you
Right.
wait? Stop waiting. As women, we wait and we wait. Don't play the waiting game. Life is too precious. Every moment, this moment between you and I, this kind of can't be replaced.
Hmm.
This energetic connection. And don't wait. If you want more, ask for it. Put a stake in it and get a good mentor. If not me, someone else that lights you up. Because the
Hmm.
world is so abundant with 8+ million people in it. There is no competition or scarcity. I live in an abundant universe, which means I call in and collaborate with women and I attract women that are like minded and like hearted. And if they're not, they soon will be because I lead by
Hmm.
example. Women that
Hmm.
say they support women and I watch something different, it makes me sad. I don't judge. It makes me sad sometimes because
Hmm.
they don't understand where the real abundance is. And I think that in 2026, it's going to be about connection. It's going to be about connection. It's going to be about connection. Is not these big productions, but these moments that are transformative that women are tapping into and men because we are
Hmm.
evolving and the ones that choose you're going to have the ones that choose not to evolve and the ones that are evolving, and I think the evolution is going to be in connection and evolution in evolving into a more spiritual heart-centered heart, and you can see it out there already, more heart-centered work. And I've been doing it a long time, but I'm seeing it catch on. And I'm like,
Hmm.
I predicted that for 2026. And I think you're gonna say, I had that conversation with that Dana Grant, and she said that, and look what's happening. Yep, I said it here.
Oh my gosh. Donna, I've been calling you Donna throughout this whole episode because I'm British and
Yeah.
it is Donna
Yeah.
for the British, but it's Dana. So I
Yeah.
do correct myself as
I get
well.
called Donna all the time because I have a lot of UK clients that are British. And, so you were so close that I didn't even correct you
Oh
because,
my gosh.
yeah, Dana, Donna, it kind of sounds the same.
Yes. Well, thank you for
Just
your
on the
great,
run. Yeah.
thank you for
Yeah.
your grace with
Yeah.
that.
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
where are we sending everyone? Like, you've got retreats, you've got one-on-one coaching, you've got masterminds, you've got your book. Where do we send everyone to go, look more
Mm,
into this stuff and also to hang out with you, like a
yeah.
newsletter, social media, all of that?
Well, they can sign up. I have a lot of giveaways. We are restructuring this month for a lot of freebies, a lot of downloads we're creating. But they can go to danagrant.com where you can find my website. But I hang out mostly on Instagram. So
Okay.
it's the real Dana Grant. And I love to answer my own messages. If they send me a private message and they've heard this, I'm going to answer. It might take me a couple of days sometimes, but I'm going to answer that. I feel really compelled to do that. And it just that I think that connection of people want to be heard. And I don't believe there's any upmanship. And I just again taught this at a keynote. I believe on having the roundtable of having us, there's equality in women connecting and listening to women instead of staying in a green room. And I had the opportunity to sit with the people and have a beautiful room that we connected in. And it was so I'm still thinking about it a week later. It's like, wow, that was powerful. And it was so full of connection and transformation. Then the big rooms where I'm in the green room and I come out and then I'm leaving. It's being of service. That's what I'm
Mm-hmm.
here to do. I told God, I'm going to pay it forward the rest of my life. And I took that commitment very seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
I'm not going to betray myself on that. I'm not going to, and I think that when we betray ourselves is where we need to slow down around and why we do it.
That is so powerful. What a great way to close this out. But I'm not
Mm.
letting you off the hook, Donna,
Well, we're
until,
going to add with that. If that was good, we're going to say
yeah.
this will be my final thing on that because I want people to know that they're never going to have a more intimate relationship with anyone than themselves.
Hmm.
And we never consider us in the equation. Get to know what you want. A lot of times when people, what do you want? Oh, I don't know. It's not uncommon when people come to me, they don't have a frigging clue of what they want. They don't know. They don't need to know. We're going to figure that out together. And I think
Hmm.
as leaders and as coaches, we hold space for all the dreamers, all the expansion. And by asking those questions, they start to, you can see it, that evolution, that movement, what's possible, where they step back, what's not possible. It's an ebb and flow. It's an ebb and flow process.
It totally is. Final words, final action step.
Mm.
Share that.
Oh, that was, it dropped right in. So I'm going to say what came to me. Don't isolate. Don't let shame or anything in your life not let you show up in your full power. I think reach out, ask for help, share in a safe place, find somebody. It doesn't have to be me or you. Find someone that you can share, that you trust. Trust is important, that
Hmm.
you can share something with, because secrets are killing you. Your secrets are killing you. My secrets were killing me, literally. No one knew about that medicine. No people knew I was sick, but they had no idea what I was going through. And the first time I told that, hundreds of women waited in line to talk to me about their own story and their aunt and their sister. And can I please help? And I had no idea that by sharing it, and I was terrified the first stage I was on. What are they going to think of me? I'm exposing everything. I'm so vulnerable. Get vulnerable. That is
Mm.
where your growth is. Put the armor down. Be willing to feel that vulnerability, that connection with another person that sees you clearly and loves you and wants the best for you and isn't saying, oh my God, I knew something was up. I got that too. But
Hmm.
it didn't make me retract. I just said, that's so interesting. I wonder what your story is.
Hmm. I wonder what your story is. What a great way to end, Dana. Oh my God, what a pleasure. I have been interspersing questions throughout this narrative that you've been sharing because what you've had to share has just been so profound that I
Mm,
just wanted you to keep downloading throughout this conversation. And that's exactly what you did. Thank you so much for your light, for your story, for your, for your raw honesty, for your wisdom. I know that you've given us a lot to think about, a lot of insights. You've reminded us that we don't need permission to trust our timing or speak our truth or expand, without apology. Thank you for that. Honestly, I mean that. And please come back on. Like
Oh,
I feel like we have so much more to talk about.
oh, we do. We do. Thank you for having me. I love your energy. Your questions were deep and wide, and I appreciate that. This was a great conversation. I loved your energy connecting with you, and thank you so much for having me. And I hope that we reach people that can mirror back and say, I'm changed because of this. I'm making different decisions because of this. And that is my desire.
And my desire is that if this has touched anyone that's listening to this, watching this, reading
Yeah.
this, I want you to go and do the thing that you know instinctually you're being called to do. So
Yeah.
whether that is connecting with Dana, whether that is grabbing her book, whether
Yeah.
that is, something else that you feel you need to do, just action it. That's what
Yeah.
we ask, right, Dana? Just
Yeah. Yeah.
action it, and I love that statement that you made. Put a stake in it.
Yeah.
I'm going to be using that for my own
Yeah.
affirmations. Like, Raj, put a
I love that.
stake in it, own it,
Absolutely.
and
And
do the
say it out
work.
loud, declare it, let the universe come in. You don't have to do it alone. You stack courage. But that one thing you can do today, we can all do one thing today. We can all do one thing. We can speak something out into existence of what you want or what you choose not to do. But I'm saying if you're focused on the negative and the lack and the scarcity, you're only creating more of that. If I'm focused on the abundance, even if I can't see it and I'm trusting the invisible, it will appear,
Yes,
you know?
absolutely. Amen to that. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Mm,
I absolutely adore you, Dana,
same,
and
same.
I just keep being you. I just
Oh,
love the
thank
you
you.
that you are.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, love the conversation.
Yeah,
Mwah.
likewise, likewise. And guys, as always, if this conversation resonated with you, which I absolutely know it did, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, confidence isn't a mask or armor. It's a muscle that requires us all to work out and to feed it. Just please do that for you or for someone else in your world that you know that you can help. And, do that thing that you think is impossible because it truly is possible if you decide that it is. And I'll see you all next time, as I always do. Another episode of Transform Your Confidence podcast, another wonderful guest, just like Dana, which, if you enjoyed this particular episode, I encourage you, please give it a 5-star rating because the algorithms will get it in front of more women who need to hear this, who need to share this, who need to action this. And as always, please stay connected with us on our socials at the Open Chest Confidence Academy and visit us at the openchestconfidenceacademy.com to see what products and services and different things that we offer that you can, glean from to help you bridge that gap that I always talk about between competence and confidence, because this is your life and you deserve to live it the right way, the way that is best resonating to you. Until next time, please take care of yourselves and also your loved ones.